Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 19 of the COO's Corner podcast, the podcast where you get an exclusive look into insider secrets on how COOs and industry leaders drive success in the world of business operations, leadership, personal growth, and resilience. My name is Tamar Nelson, and your host and a specialist in the area of operational resilience. And today we are exploring the topic of stress, making it work for you and not against you. We have so many people walking around today stressed. Even the babies are stressed. Nowadays, we see persons so frustrated, not patient. Everyone is on a low. The energies are negative, reactive, and persons are just walking around triggered. So today we are going to unpack some of this and see how we can't seem to avoid it. So how can we work with it? How can it work for us? And today we have someone as our guest who has spent 20 years in the public health system and went from completely burnt out and sick to taking charge of her own well-being. And she has used that to create her own method of making stress work for persons and not against them. So she helps now business leaders and help them to develop a habit of breaking free from stress. And she is none other than Scarlette. Scarlette, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you so much, Tamar. I mean, especially because you're from Jamaica. That's my happy place. Whenever I'm stressed, I just transport myself to Jamaica with Bob Marley's Three Little Birds.
Yes.
So I'm super mega excited to be here.
And we are excited to have you too, Scarlette. And, this is such an important topic for persons, and even more so since the pandemic, where stress is on the rise. I saw one article that 3 out of 4 persons, adults, would say that they are stressed. That's a huge number, and possibly even more than that now. So, Scarlette, to start us off, what exactly is stress, and how can we differentiate the good stress and the bad stress, and can we really live without stress?
You've got 3 questions there, and really excellent questions that I think most people don't really know the answers to. So I'm going to start with the first one. Stress is our human response to protecting us from what we perceive as a threat. Mm-hmm. So in the old days, we used to use stress to protect ourselves from being eaten alive by lions, when we went hunting, when there were terrible natural disasters and we had to escape. So we use stress to actually protect ourselves. And when we have that reaction, that stress reaction, not a response, a reaction, our bodies actually prepare us to protect ourselves. So our nervous systems go into fight or freeze or flight mode. What does that mean? That we're actually prepared to fight. We either freeze or we just run away. We also get our digestive system affected. So instead of digesting in a relaxed state, we actually don't do it. Why? Because we're not going to be eating when we're escaping or when we're fighting. So it's a very different way that our bodies respond to it. Now, there is good stress, which is healthy stress, and there is toxic stress. Mm-hmm. The toxic stress is when we actually accumulate it throughout from months to years, and we don't actually do anything effectively to release that toxic stress. So when toxic stress gets accumulated in our bodies, in our minds, it's called chronic stress, and it can lead to burnout. So the key is to actually break the self-destructive habit of living under extreme stress. And when it's the habit, we don't actually realize that we've already developed a life that is based on extreme stress. So it actually feels normal to us. So the key is to break down that habit, to crush it, and to actually have healthy, low stress levels, because stress is part of us being human beings and it's part of life. So it is not possible to have no stress.
And now, Scarlett, in the times that we're living in, these things that would trigger stress are now happening in a greater magnitude and at a higher frequency. So it would be,
right.
So that requires a great need for us to release this stress constantly, to not, what you say, absorb it and keep it in, lock it inside of us so that it comes to that chronic state. You know, and there are so many avenues I want to take after what you just said. But let me start with this one. You said that stress would lead to burnout. And wouldn't burnout then lead to anxiety and depression? And we're seeing a rise of that happening in our world today. How can we break free from that habit? Because if stress is all around us constantly, that means that we are more prone to burnout and the other effects of that. How can we stop it or manage it?
I think that realistically speaking, we do have to change the way that we approach stress instead of expecting it to disappear. Because there's no magic formula to make stress disappear. Stress is part of life, and stress is actually part of us being human beings. So we can't expect it to just go away. What we can do is to actually change the way that we approach it. And instead of reacting to it, we can respond to it. And how can we change that? We actually have to do a lot of inner work to identify the root causes of extreme stress factors in our lives. Because burnout, unlike what the World Health Organization states, which I completely disagree with, it's not just an occupational issue. Burnout is a complete state of emotional, physical, psychologically exhaustion. And that exhaustion can actually be caused by various factors in your life. You could have a chronic illness. You could have a child that's being bullied at school. You could be bombarded with unrealistic deadlines at work. So when you have those three factors, and not all of them relate to work, you're going to be bombarded with extreme stress from all directions.
Yes.
And if you don't release it and you change the way that you approach stress, in other words, you respond to it, you're actually going to burn out, because we all have a stress tank. That's our tolerance level, right? So we can't really expect that everybody has the same tolerance level. And our tolerance level is depending on our resilience, the way that we grew up, and the way that we actually perceive stress in our lives.
So from what I'm hearing, Scarlett, it's an inside job first, and that our whole mental models may have to change as it relates to how we view stress and how we deal with it and how we approach it. So interesting points there as it relates to that. And I think one of the articles I read about stress recently said that the top three were money, work, and health. Those were the top three reasons that person cites as causing them stress. And when it comes to those things, it doesn't necessarily have to be you. It could be someone that you love, someone very close to you that's going through that can impact your stress levels. So, with these different triggers coming from different angles, the need for a response is important. Would you say, Scarlett, it would be a good exercise for us to think about those things that trigger us or cause us stress and write out responses that we should have to these and try to practice those responses? Is that something that you would recommend?
There are very practical tips that I could recommend to help us release the stress or reduce the level of cortisol that, these challenging situations causes in our lives. But again, if we don't go to the root cause, all these valuable tips are like band-aids on an infected wound. And the wound is going to keep bleeding and is going to keep causing you issues along the way. And you're going to keep changing the band-aid. So it's going to be mindfulness, it's going to be yoga, it's going to be meditation, it's going to be this and that. But if you don't actually address the root cause, which could be perfectionism, could be the trauma by bullying, by sexual harassment, it could be the fact that you are so empathetic that you're self-neglecting by putting everyone else first. And you're not putting that oxygen mask that you need before you actually help others.
Absolutely. I did have that point to ask you, if who suffers most? Parents or non-parents, empaths, or who are the types of, what are the types of personalities that seem to suffer more from the effects of stress? And I think, in your discussion, you outlined quite a few of those persons, so we have to take note, all the empaths out there, possibly even learning how to say no to some things so that we can get that oxygen mask on first. You can't pour from an empty cup, right?
Tamar, I think you raised a really, really critical point there, and it's the ability to say no. So many people are so afraid of saying no. Why? Because we're conditioned, we're pretty much brainwashed by our working cultures that we have to be a yes person, that we have to be a team player, that we have to be proactive, and help everyone. What if we're actually saying yes to things we don't want to say yes to? What if we want to say no, but we're afraid of the repercussions, afraid of being seen as not cooperative, not working in a collaborative spirit, or not being a team player? So we really have to break those fears and start saying no, not just, no, I don't want to do that, but saying no in a way that repositions you as a leader in a strategic way. Because saying a plain no is actually going to get people defensive.
Yes.
So you have to be strategic about it too.
So saying something like, my schedule doesn't allow that at this time. It's an interesting proposition, but I'll have to take it up another time. So finding creative ways of saying no is always good, So that's right.
So
that's
right.
We have to reframe it and have those on hand. And if it means that we have to sit down and practice them so that we know how to navigate the different ways, it would be good and to our benefit to do so.
That's right. And I think when you have, other leaders that you're friends with, or that you collaborate with, to have a chat with them. What do you think about, these ways of establishing healthy boundaries? Because that's what saying no does.
Right.
It actually helps you establish a healthy boundary, not just to ground yourself at work as a strategic leader, but also keeps a reasonable workload that you will enjoy. Instead of saying yes to things that have nothing to do with your scope of work or what you really want to achieve,
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Scarlett. And so another, you mentioned leadership. And stress is something that impacts us on a personal level and also on an organizational level. So we have health and well-being at a personal or organizational level being affected. So, culture is affected, your relationships are affected as a result of these stress. How can we as leaders pick up on these stress indicators in our teams, and what can we do to help them so that our organizations and our teams can thrive?
I think that's a really interesting question coming from you, because you're an expert in operational resilience. So I would really like you to share your perspective on this too, because operational resilience also includes this side.
Absolutely.
So I believe that self-awareness is key in any kind of leader. So to constantly self-reflect and self-check. How am I feeling today? Am I feeling good about myself? Am I feeling that I still have the energy to actually do the best of my work? If not, you really have to check whether you have empathy fatigue. Because giving and caring so much about others and wanting everybody to excel also ends up in empathy fatigue if you don't have that healthy boundary in checking with yourself. Okay? Because once again, we've got to put on the oxygen mask first, and when we're struggling breathing, we have to put it again. I think it's also important to reassess whether workloads are reasonable or not. Because one of the things that I see that causes a lot of stress in the workplace is not having enough staff to do all the work. So people do the work of an entire team, or of 2 or 3 roles in one, which is a sure recipe for burnout. And, not have the kind of toxic leadership that disguises unreasonable workloads in sentences like, well, you need to reprioritize, or you need to better manage your time. When the truth is that there is so much work that they actually need to hire more staff. So I think we have to be self-aware, always checking with ourselves whether we're okay or not, putting that oxygen mask first. Second of all, ensuring that we have reasonable workloads. And what does that mean? Is this within the scope of my work? Is this within my own capacity at this stage? Is this something that can be delegated to a more junior staff or someone else? Or is this something that can actually wait? Because the other thing is that these unrealistic deadlines that are made as life or death, unless you work in emergency services, you're a frontline worker, or you're a police officer, or you're in the military, it's not life or death. And there's something very toxic about the business world that makes us perceive these deadlines as life or death. So what do our bodies do? We do what our human species, it's made to do. React, have that fight or flight or freeze response, because that's how our brains perceive it, as a life or death threat.
Yes.
So, a healthy workplace comes from the top, from the person at the top. If that person fosters a healthy workplace and invests in training and creating that culture from the leadership level, it's going to cascade down up to the cleaning staff. And we all have a part to play in it.
Absolutely. It's as a collective.
Yes, sorry.
As a collective. No, I'll answer the same question as you suggested. When it comes to the whole matter of organizational resilience, the health and wellness of our team is very critical. And I agree with you 100% that the work needs to start with the man in the mirror. We have to start with ourselves to really do the inner work and change how we think, how we, our beliefs, our actions, and really commit to making those shifts so that we can impact ourselves. When we have made those changes, it will cascade to our teams, because and then we will be in a better position to share and to help those to spot when somebody is going through something similar, because we have gone there, we have made those changes, that we are then able to help others to do the same. And we are able to lead from a place of knowledge. And I think that's so powerful. We can't look for it from an external source. It cannot be a case where it's just a 30-minute or 1-hour presentation by someone coming in, or gifts that you give out to the team. It has to be something that's a way of doing things. It comes out in our conversations, our actions, everything that we do, all our interactions. So, and as it relates to those things, it's not a one size fits all, and it's not a one-time job. There's no magic bullet. It's something that has to be done consistently over time. And we need like a whole toolkit of things that we can do.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
For us on a personal
agree.
level, it may be, taking a walk, journaling, exercise, having that good conversation, getting some fresh air. We can do the same with our teams. We can build this into our work structures with our teams, so that it's a way of how we do things, so that we can maintain our productivity levels throughout the day and have those better outcomes. Because a healthy and happy workforce will then mean that we can serve our customers, our clients, even better and from a different and a better perspective. And I think when that happens, everyone, we are unstoppable.
I'm with you 1000%, because if we're not well ourselves, we cannot give the best of ourselves to others.
Yes.
As simple as that.
And that kind of leadership, Scarlette, really takes us knowing the people around us, to be in tune, to know that when something is off, something isn't right, because it's not all the time persons would be open with us to share. So we would have to either draw it out or even be discreet in how we assist them without them even knowing that we know what's happening with them. So we can then create that healthy environment, at least for when they are at work, which would be a big deal. And those differences can make such a huge impact on a person's life. And so it's something that we really need to be considering, all the time, really, especially now.
I agree, Tamar. I think it makes a huge positive difference in a staff member's lives when they're going through something really tough outside of work and they have the support, from the workplace.
Right.
Whether it's time off, whether it's someone to talk to, whether it's reduced workload, if they already have a reasonable workload, or if they're working, reduced hours. I mean, those are very simple things to do to support someone in that,
Right.
situation. But I think it's also important to encourage them to actually seek the right support outside of work. And why do I say this? It's because when we are very, very passionate leaders, when we love what we do, and when we love the organization that we work for, there is a tendency in some of us to expect that our workplace is going to give us all. So what we would get, for example, centuries ago from an entire village or from a tribe, we now expect it from our workplace or from our partner. So we have to be realistic and take responsibility for our own well-being. And in spite of how much we love what we do, it's very important to create a meaningful and healthy and joyful life outside of work that is aligned to who we truly are as human beings.
Absolutely.
Away from titles, away from assets, because one of the main reasons, Tamar, for extreme stress is that our self-worth depends on our professional achievements.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
On how we are perceived as leaders. In other words, our professional reputation. What if we lost all of that? Would we love ourselves as unique human beings? So this is why it's important to invest in yourself, to love yourself as a human being before your job title, before your university degrees, before your assets, before being someone's wife or someone's husband or someone's mother or father.
Mm-hmm. So that's
really... before anything else, we are unique human beings.
Yeah. So you're saying peel back those layers, take off those titles, and get to the core of who we really are, and just be authentically yourself.
Exactly.
I love that. I love that. What would you say, Scarlette, is the number one mistake that you see happening with leaders, with persons today? As it relates to stress, what would you say is the one mistake that everyone is doing?
Well, apart from what I've just explained, is the all or nothing mentality. So what does that mean? If I don't get this promotion, my career will be over. If we don't make this business deal that we've been working on for so long, I'm going to be seen like a fool. It all comes down to knowing your self-worth away from your titles, away from your assets, who you truly are as a human being, and that uniqueness that you have in your soul is not something that you learned at university or at a professional development workshop. It's something that comes from within your soul. And no one, no bully, no pervert who's sexually harassing you at work, no competitor has the power to take that away from you. No one.
That's really powerful.
So I think if we're reminded of that every single day, I think our lives would be a lot healthier and more meaningful.
Absolutely. We are more than our titles, way more, and it does take a village.
Exactly.
It does take a village. Wow. So Scarlette, what resources are there open to us? You mentioned, speaking to others, digging deep. Where can we find the resources that can help us on our journey towards utilizing stress to our advantage?
Well, first of all, I think it's important to spend a little bit of time with yourself and ask yourself, what are my stress triggers? What are my main stress triggers? And why does this trigger me? And then work on yourself to actually change the way that you react to how you respond to that stressor. Okay?
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. And the other valuable tips that I have are things that can actually increase your oxytocin and your serotonin. So those are very, very good, happy hormones that we all need more of in our bodies.
Hormones.
That's right. That's right. When we are overwhelmed with this cortisol hormone that is excellent if we need to fight to protect ourselves or run away, but not in our daily life and not at work every day. So here are a few tips to actually boost our oxytocin.
Can I tell you number one? Can I tell you number one?
Number one for me, at least, is music.
Don't
music
worry.
That you love. Don't worry, be happy.
About a thing.
That's right. Three Little Birds.
Everything.
Gonna be all right. Don't worry about a thing. Cause every little thing is gonna be all right. That's right. That's how we can make it. Every little thing can actually be all right if we learn to respond instead of react. So Three Little Birds has been my happy song forever. I've listened to it in the hardest times of my life. And it's actually changed me from being very stressed and anxious, even before having a major surgery or when I was being bullied, up to, for example, when I had a nightmare of a flight, when I was traveling from Australia to Chile in South America through the US. So when you actually listen to a song that you love that makes you want to dance, well, if you have the space, go for it. Go and shake your booty. Why not? If you're at work, go to the bathroom and lock yourself in the bathroom, put your earphones on and listen to it and dance.
Yeah.
That's going to help you boost your oxytocin more effectively than actually going out for a walk. Because if you go out for a walk when you've had a stressing meeting or when you're about to meet someone that there's a lot of conflict there, you're going to be thinking. You're going to be thinking about, I don't want to see this person.
Mm-hmm.
This happened last time and God knows what's going to happen this time. So you're going to be catastrophizing during your walk. Mm-hmm. The other thing you can do is to actually stimulate your vagus nerve. So your vagus nerve starts from your brain and it goes down through your spine. And what does this do? It actually helps you calm down. It helps activate the parasympathetic nervous system that it keeps us in a relaxed state. So some of the things that actually activate the vagus nerve and at the same time boost oxytocin is singing, is actually hugging someone that you love and trust. If you don't have someone that you can hug at work, because let's be honest, that could be seen as sexual harassment.
And cause more stress.
That's right. Well, go to the bathroom and actually hug yourself. You're actually going to be soothing yourself when you do this. You do this a couple of times and you breathe in, counting to 4, and then counting to 4 when you exhale. You do that a couple of times, you're going to feel like yawning. And when you feel like yawning, it means that you've already activated your parasympathetic nervous system. So you're already relaxing, right? Another activity is to actually tap. There is a technique called tapping that is based on acupressure. And acupressure stimulates meridians throughout our body. Meridians are centers where energy flows. So when we're extremely stressed, our energy gets stuck. We need to make it flow again. So apart from those tips I gave you, we can actually start tapping. And this, for example, these are tapping points above your eyebrows, about below your eyes, under your nose. If you do that 10 seconds each, and while you do it, you tell yourself, I'm stressed, but I'm managing it to the best of my ability. I'm stressed, but I'm managing it so well. I'm handling this. I'm stressed, but I've dealt with worse things in the past, so I can actually handle this. And after you do this, you breathe in and out 3 times, and you actually rate your anxiety and stress level from 1 to 10 compared to when you started. And you're actually going to realize that your anxiety and your stress are going to decrease.
Yes, yes.
You know, so these are very simple tips.
Yes, Mary McDonald.
Have you tried those?
Yes, one of my friends in England does that, and she's very good at it. And we did a session, and it was next level, right? Mary McDonald Hockley. And with the other tip that you gave, one of my guests, Omozoa, she recommended yawning 6 times, just forcing it, just taking deep breaths and forcing it until by the 6th time it will be like a real yawn. And when you do that, it just feels so relaxed. You feel so relaxed, and it's like all the stress just lifts off your shoulder. So those are definitely tips. If you're listening, you need to try. And if you are listening, and you can look at the YouTube video to see where Scarlette was tapping. It was between her, right at the wrist, is it, Scarlette? Right?
It's in your hand, the side of your hand.
Right. And the wrist,
over there. Yeah.
Right. Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Right to the base of your pinky, kind of.
That's right.
Just keep tapping.
That's right.
Awesome.
So there, well, I can have a blog about this on my website, to support your audience with the acupressure points, but it actually really works. Something else that works that I'm remembering now, because you're in Jamaica, which is my happy place, is to actually put your hands in your heart, close your eyes, and remember the happiest time that you've had in your life so far, the happiest you felt, and just visualize every single detail from that happy moment, from the colors, the way you felt, what you were talking about, what you were doing, if you were dancing, if you were with your children, with someone else, the place itself. Just feel it. Why? Because your brain doesn't differentiate what's reality from fantasy. So when you actually visualize it and you feel it, you're actually going to be feeling and boosting the same happiness hormones that you were having that moment.
Right. And these are tips that you can do even if you're in the office, in a meeting, in a toxic situation. You can
That's right.
transport yourself to your happy place by the beach in Jamaica, kayaking somewhere on the rapids, wherever your happy place is. And one of the books I was reading the other day, it mentioned something, and I just found it so profound that, in Jamaica, this side of the world, we have hurricanes, and the winds will be, blowing at miles per hour. But in the center, there is the eye, where there's that calm. So, we can imagine ourselves in that calm space, even though everything around us is twirling. We can imagine that safe place and just focus on the calm, so that even in those
Yes.
stressful situations, we are able to remain calm, think clearly, and act decisively and respond accordingly instead of being out on the edges, in the wind, being frazzled and reacting to things, which just increases our stress level. And that just meant, it was very profound for me. And, when you have those aha moments, you feel that change on the cellular level. And it was just one of those things that just connected with me. And I'm like, wow, being in that eye in the storm, and so I think of it often and it really helps to kind of ground and center you so that you can really not bring that cortisol level lower so that you can better deal with the situations on hand. So those are very
absolutely
tips.
Yes. Well, that's why I always say to my clients, remember that the sun always comes out after the storm, and storms don't last forever.
This too shall pass.
That's right. That's right. And in the north of Germany, I was told there's no such thing as, bad weather. There's only bad clothing.
We're not prepared for it.
That's right. What does that mean? That if we don't prepare ourselves with the tools to actually respond to stressful situations, we're going to let that stress overwhelm us like a storm.
It's like a bit like exercise, right, Scarlette? You have to build that muscle. So we have to lift things and stretch to have healthy muscles. Same thing with how, our mental models, how we deal with stress. We have to exercise them and see how we can better respond to these things. So it's the more we practice, we prepare, it will help us to have better outcomes. Awesome.
That's right.
That's lovely. So, I know Scarlette, me and you, we could speak forever.
Yes.
I know we have a singing thing going. I don't know if the audience will want to hear more of our singing, but I'll spare them. But is there anything?
Oh, maybe you can put the original song instead.
we can do what you call it, karaoke one of these days.
Sounds good. I haven't done that in a long time.
So is there anything, as we wrap up, that you would want to share with our audience that I may not have asked? Something burning, anything else that you'd want to add to what you have discussed so far?
I would like to leave your audience with one priceless lesson that I learned when I burnt out. Your job, as passionate as you are about it, has an X number of dollars, euros, pounds, but your well-being is priceless. So don't take it for granted, because if you invest in your well-being, you're going to have priceless rewards for life.
Ah, what a beautiful note. I love that. I love that. Yes.
Thank you. I love it too, and I live by it.
And we can see that. We feel the energy coming from you, Scarlette.
From the screen.
Yes, it's flowing from Australia to Jamaica and and right across the world. So everyone listening has a touch of that sunshine coming through. And so
Yes.
we want to thank you. But before you go, I can't get you off the hook. All of my guests ask this question. I believe in the power of questions, and questions can even be a release.
Yes.
What's one question that you've always used either in helping persons or in your career that that you frequently use to get the best outcomes?
That's a very good question itself. For the clients that I've had who have been burning out, they have usually forgotten about who they truly are. But I help them realize that on their own. And this question is very powerful, and it helps me do that. If the stress could be a person, what would that person be telling you right now about your life and about you?
Oh, that's a game changer question, Scarlette.
And that the answers that they come up with, some of them say, it's a bit ridiculous. But then I actually ask them, just open yourself up. There's no one here judging you. It's just you and me. If stress was a person, what would that person be telling you about your life and yourself right now? And the answers just flow. They just flow.
And that helps them to look from the outside in.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. It helps them
to get out of
see their life as a movie.
Yeah.
That instead of being the audience, they have the choice right then to become the director.
Becoming the director of our own lives. Wow. We can change the script. How powerful is
That's right.
Very powerful way to end this conversation, Scarlette. I really want to thank you for sharing with us today all of your wisdom and your insights. And I think it's so profound that you are using your own experience to help others or to prevent others from going down the same path. And you are doing a world of good. Please continue to help as many persons as possible. And I hope that you, our listeners listening, you got a tip or two and can make tomorrow a less stressed day, that you can enjoy and be the director of your life towards using the stress that you face to really empower, encourage, and for you to really have the best outcomes that's in your life. So please share with me anything that you like from this conversation, anything more that you'd like to hear. We want to hear about it. Share your comments in the chat And if you want to reach out to me, you can find me at tamarnelson.com or on LinkedIn at tamar-nelson. If you are overwhelmed by stress, don't wait until you burn out. Start breaking the habit of being stressed, and you can find Scarlette and get a stress consultation. And she is at thegoodrebel.net. You need to hear about that some more, Scarlette. thegoodrebel.net. Where you will find her stress consultation with an action plan. Wow, that sounds like real value right there. So please feel free to reach out to her, reach out to me, and join us again for another information-packed episode. Until next time, stress less and be your best. And as we say in Jamaica, walk good.
Thank you so much, Tamar. It was an honor.
And my pleasure, Scarlette.